If I were to ask you about the city of Pompeii, what could you tell me? Most people know it as an ancient city that was overtaken by the raging volcano Mount Vesuvius long ago. But how much is known about the history of the city itself? That's what we're here to answer. First, let's discuss the basics. Mount Vesuvius erupted in one of the largest and most devastating volcanic eruptions in recorded history in 79 AD. As much as 20 feet of volcanic debris engulfed Pompeii and a large part of the land southeast of the mountain because of a dense, fast-flowing stream of volcanic ash, superheated gases, and solidified lava known as lapilli that flowed down the sides of Vesuvius. These eruptions leave behind a complicated recovery and challenging landscape that requires integrated efforts in environmental restoration, urban development, and disaster management. Archaeologists have been working at Pompeii for over 250 years. However, in the beginning these excavations were more treasure hunting trips than scientific investigations, with the goal of gathering the silver, jewelry, mosaics, paintings, and sculptures that now adorn many museums throughout the world. About 2,000 victims have been identified in the Pompeii excavation site out of an estimated 20,000 people living there. Let's move on to the culture. Before its destruction, Pompeii was a thriving Roman city with a rich culture that reflected the daily lives of its inhabitants. Home to over 10,000 people, Pompeii's bustling streets were lined with houses, shops, and workshops. The noise from carts and pedestrians filled the air, and the streets were often congested. Pompeii's street-side snack cafes offered quick meals, including prepared food and wine. The remains of bread and industrial sites like bakeries and fish salting baths reveal the city's food culture. However, these foods were typically reserved for Pompeii's higher-ups. The poor regularly ate cereal-based porridges. How about the architecture of Pompeii? The architecture of Pompeii showcases the advanced engineering and artistic design of ancient Roman civilization. Pompeii featured various residences, from apartment complexes to villas. Pompeii's streets were filled with eye-catching graffiti, from political ads to notices for gladiatorial games and rooms for rent. However, many subtle examples carved into plaster or written with chalk and charcoal preserve communication between residents. Unlike modern graffiti, Pompeii's was a positive form of social exchange. Despite its tragic fate, Pompeii's architecture endures as a powerful link to the artistry, engineering, and urban planning of ancient Rome. Now, the eruption. The eruption of Mount Vesuvius was a powerful natural disaster that began with ominous warning signs before unleashing total devastation on Pompeii. Volcanoes eject different materials, including gas, solid rock, lava, or ash, depending on the eruption. The eruption of Vesuvius in AD 79 had two main phases. The first, an 18 to 20 hour Plinian phase, dropped pumice over Pompeii and surrounding areas, forcing many to flee. The second phase, the Pelkin, brought hot asphalt avalanches that reached as far as Mycenaeum. Those who stayed in Pompeii were suffocated by the ash, which buried their bodies. The Pelkin phase caused even more damage to nearby cities like Oplantis and Herculaneum. In just 18 hours, millions of tons of volcanic ash and pumice buried Pompeii. Over these 18 hours, a 280-centimeter layer of pumice covered Pompeii, piling up at 15 centimeters per hour. This caused two major problems. Many flat roofs collapsed under the weight, and thick pumice made walking difficult in total darkness. However, few likely died during this phase, as the prolonged pumice fall likely gave most residents time to flee before the worst of the disaster struck. The eruption of Mount Vesuvius was a sudden and catastrophic event that not only destroyed Pompeii but also preserved it as a haunting reminder of nature's power. Lastly, we're going to talk about the aftermath and survivors. The survivors of Pompeii faced the challenge of rebuilding their lives elsewhere, while the buried city remained undiscovered for centuries. When Mount Vesuvius erupted, thousands of people died, although many Pompeians were able to escape the city and the area where the volcano exploded. Over time, ecosystems and vegetation recovered as nature reclaimed the land. By the 120 AD, evidence shows efforts to rebuild the Vesuvian region with small farms, new homes, and returning settlers, despite ongoing challenges. However, Mount Vesuvius remained active, causing repeated destruction and forcing residents to adapt to constant threats. On the whole, the people of Pompeii could not have foreseen their city's fate. Their legacy lives on through the ruins that tell their story to this day.